Hello everyone, this is Tony Pente from Orioles Hangout, and we're going to try something new here today. This is kind of a video blog answering some questions and kind of going over what the happenings and so forth with the Orioles right now. It's Thursday, July 26th. I'm watching the Orioles right now. Watching Chris Tillman go for his 15th win, hopefully, here, and it's good to see Kim back in left field. Just made a catch there in the second inning. It's good to see him back out there. Definitely need his on-base percentage to get this offense back going, which has been a little stale of late, but the pitching has stepped up. So that's the best thing about this team is it seems like, as I talked on the message board, it's a team of destiny. It seems like they find ways to win, whether it's the starting pitching is good that day and the hitting does just enough, or it's the opposite. So it's been a really fun season. But so what I'm going to do here today is just kind of go through some questions that were put on the message board from some folks and give some answers and see how this goes. We'll have fun with this. I don't know where we'll go with this. I don't know how often we'll do it. We'll see what the response is and see if people like this. And if they do, maybe we'll do more of those. So we'll go ahead and start off with Weems asked the first question. Of course, my man Weems always has to get in there quick. He says, what pitching do you expect to see acquired before Monday at 4 p.m.? And where do you expect Albaldo to be traded to and for who? Well, let me think. I'll have to put my seeing into the future. Weems, I can't see into the future. I don't know where Albaldo's going to be going. I just hope it's somewhere other than Baltimore. No, seriously. So going back into this, I'm looking at the end of the day is I do think the Orioles will try to make a trade. The problem they have right now is we just don't have enough in the minor league system to get that kind of guy. Unless you're going to eat a lot of salary, it just comes down to it is that we're not really set up for getting a top guy like a Hellickson. I know they've been talking about Andrew Cashner. Cashner is a guy, again, doesn't excite me. You look at all the peripherals, you look at the stuff from Fangraph, and it just says all of his pitches are in the negatives. That's not going to play well in the AL East. If you're barely hanging on out there pitching for San Diego, coming into AL East is probably not a good deal. So I hope the Orioles kind of avoid that there. There is a guy, I'll tell you right now, the guy that pitched last night against us, Jorge De La Rosa, this is a guy that's a free agent at the end of the year. He's pitched much better of late. He was terrible early on. His numbers overall don't look that good, but what I saw last night was a guy that probably could have some success. He pitched very well against the Orioles lineup. If this is a guy that they can get maybe for a second level, maybe a couple of second level prospects, guys like Christian Walker and maybe throwing a guy like John Means, if we can get something like that, it just kind of throws him out there and we get an opportunity to add a pitcher like that, I think that would be great. De La Rosa is definitely the kind of guy that I would probably target if we can get him cheap enough. Also, I think we need a left-handed reliever. It comes down to it is that, we need somebody who could definitely get out those key left-handers. I'm not convinced that Givens is the kind of guy you want in a leverage situation against a good lefty. O'Day has been, pretty good. Brock has been very good against both sides this year. Those guys are good, but I just like to have that good loogie, that guy that comes in that can get that out. Brian Mattis was that for a few seasons. I know Donnie Hart threw well a little bit in there, but Donnie Hart you never want facing a right-handed batter. One of the guys I think could be available out there from Minnesota is Fernando Abad. He dominates lefties. Again, if there's something we can get with second level type of prospects to give up for him, actually Abad is a guy that has one more arbitration year available, so he's a guy that you can still still be able to keep around next season as well. So, and that might be the reason why Minnesota might not move him. But again, he would be a guy that I would kind of look at if I could. So let's go on to Maryland Transplant 757. Do you think Upton will be the equivalent of Parra for the Jays this season? That's an interesting trade because they really don't need Upton. It was kind of like when we were looking at him as well when you heard the Orioles were interested in him. He's going to be a part-time player for them. I think he'll get some at-bats. I think he'll probably platoon with Saunders, at times, maybe fill in for Millar here and there because he hasn't hit a ton of late. But he's a guy that, they didn't really give a big prospect up. He wasn't a top 100 guy. He's a decent prospect from everything I read up about Hansel Rodriguez. But at the end of the day, is San Diego is paying for almost all but about $5 million of that contract. So it's a pretty good deal overall for the Blue Jays because you get an extra guy that you're not paying a ton for, and he has a little bit of speed. He has some defensive abilities out there, and he can pop a home run occasionally, and he hits left-handers well. So, I think it's a good move for them. If the Orioles could have got him for something like that, again, I don't know what was going on with that, but, obviously, he's not going to be as bad as Parra was for the Orioles, I don't think, because first off, the Orioles actually gave up something of value for Parra. They gave up Zach Davies, who's been very good for the Brewers this season. I think anyone that's read the message board knows my distaste for that trade. That's actually one of the trades that I think was Dan Duquette's worst trade he's made at the deadline. I think it's actually set us back because Davies would be a great guy in this rotation right now. He might not be pitching at a mid-3 ERA like he is with the Brewers, but even in the AL East, I think he's a 4 ERA guy, and he's definitely a guy that would be in our rotation right now and doing a good job, and I think that's what hurt us. So let's move along to Jean Four. He said, what are your views regarding the chances of signing Manny to a long-term deal? That's really interesting because if you listen to John Angelos, he's made a couple of concerning kind of statements on that, talking about how you can't put all your eggs in one basket and how he's looking. You can't have one guy. And again, it kind of tells me that Manny's looking and his advisors are looking for that gigantic a mega contract. And honestly, I think I've talked about this multiple times. Look, I think Manny Machado is the best player the Orioles have. I think he's the guy that you build your franchise around. I think if you sign him to a 10-year contract, he will end up being the Orioles' best player has ever put the Orioles uniform on. And I know that's hefty saying, but that's kind of how I feel about Manny Machado. And I think that they're going to have to figure out a way. I'd love to be able to get that done. I feel better because I've seen Angelos start to pay for these players now. I mean, just like this season when I saw that the Weeders took the qualifying offer, I didn't think that I thought Davis was gone. I thought O'Day was gone, and the Orioles ended up ponying up for both of those guys. So, it's one of those situations where, the Orioles know this is the way the world is. If you want to compete, you have to keep this. Scope's going to be coming up for a contract. Tillman's got to be re-signed. There's going to be just some decisions down the road, but I think you start with Manny Machado. I think you worry about everybody else. I think Manny Machado is the guy you need to have under our belt, and Oriole fans can feel good about looking at him and be able to know that he's in the lineup for the next 10 years. I think would be fantastic. So let's go ahead and move on to Dirty Bird. He asks, which one of our top 3 picks do you expect to see on the Major League roster first and when, and how far do you see them advancing next season? Well, that's always an interesting question when it comes to draft picks because you just really never know what you quite got. And the Orioles went really hard against college pitching early on, getting Cody Sedlock, Keegan Aiken, and Matthew Dietz right, in those the first and second rounds with their 3 picks there. All those guys got some innings on them, and they're kind of treating them with kid gloves right now. Sedlock and Aiken are at Aberdeen. They've been pitching 3-inning starts. Aiken has something like 7 starts at Western Michigan where he pitched over 100 innings. So he was kind of abused at Western Michigan. So I think they're going to be very, very slow with him, making sure he's built back up. He's probably not going to pitch a ton this season. But any of those guys could really be the guy that kind of gets to the system quick. They're all, you're looking at Aiken, and he's the oldest one of them at 22. Sedlock is obviously the first-round pick. He's a guy that could have opportunity to move quickly. It's just going to depend. I think we'll have a better idea next season when we see them come in. I'm sure they're going to be assigned most likely to either Delmarva or Frederick, depending upon where they are. And we'll see kind of how they're moving. If you see that guy that's already in Bowie by the end of next season, then that's the guy kind of on the fast track, and that's the guy that you probably will see quick enough. So let's move on to Frobby, the great and all-powerful Hall of Fame Hangouter Frobby. So Frobby asks, what, if any, buzz are you hearing about our 2016 draftees now that they've gotten their feet wet in Aberdeen or the GCL? So, again, that's another good question. The guy that's really kind of stood out so far that really has jumped all over things is Cole Billingsley, who's a 19th round draft pick, center fielder. right fielder kind of guy who's really kind of picked up for Austin Hayes, who was the 4th round pick this season, who has a wrist injury and has been out since July 10th. And really, he's got the opportunity to play every day because of that. A lot of 19th round picks have to kind of find their way. They're not really considered, not normally considered prospects when you're in the 19th round, especially when you're a 22-year-old college guy. He's a little old for the league, obviously, but he's done exactly what he was supposed to do. He gets on base. He's getting on base at a 392 clip. He's showing a little bit of pop. He walks a little bit. And he's playing a decent outfield out there. So he's kind of been one of the guys that's kind of stood out early on. I'd like to, tell you that there's just not a lot of stuff right now with the guys you're seeing. Austin Hayes had a good start to the season. We heard a little bit of nice things about him, about some tools there. His ability to play right field, good arm out there, and he showed a little pop early on as well. So, real early. Cole Billingsley's the first guy that really kind of jumps out of this so far, as a guy's really kind of stood out since he's been out. So the next question Frobby asked was, what's your take on the 3 relatively young starters in Delmarva, in Peralta, Gonzalez, and Alvarado? So Peralta's a guy that's really interesting. He's got the highest ceiling of probably any starter we have or any pitcher that we have in the minors right now. He's a big, tall right-hander, but he's very raw. And when I mean raw, in that, not just in command, but in stuff. The breaking ball kind of comes and goes. The changeup is really kind of a work in progress. He's a hard thrower. He's a guy that throws mid-90s, been in the upper 90s a few times, hit 100 reportedly a time or two. So he's a young guy. He's got a lot. He's just, he's 19 years old. He's in Delmarva. He's doing a very good job this season. So he's somebody people should be excited about, but cautiously excited because there's some rawness to just the way, the way he goes about there and the command and some of the pitches. One of the scouts I knew from another organization told me that they felt that he's probably a reliever at some point, but I think it's too early to start giving, those kind of takes because I've seen guys kind of develop as they go along. So he's got definitely to watch. Gonzalez is a guy that's taken a step forward this season. The velocity's up. He's throwing 3 pitches for strikes, and the numbers are there this season. So we've seen him kind of take that step forward. Brian is guy who was had a rough season last season at Delmarva. Went back there, repeated as 20. And now he's like, he's got 2.79 ERA. He's striking out 7.2, guys per inning. Again, not high upside guy. I think Gonzalez is still probably a guy you look at, maybe that 4th type of starter. If the Orioles get that, they'll be thrilled. If we can get a guy that can give some innings, he's built like a guy that should be able to give you some innings. And, that's a good thing. And he's coming along nicely. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a couple starts in kind of Delmarva at the end of the year. Christian Alvarado, he's just a guy that he's a kind of a pitchability guy, right-hander. Although he's got a little bit of height to him. He's a 6'3", kind of beanpole kind of guy from Venezuela. The numbers are really good. I mean, they come out. He's striking out 10.1, only walking 1.9 batters per 9. The numbers jump out at you, but again, some of the reports you get back, you start hearing things like pitchability, the velocity is 88 to 91. Breaking stuff is average at best on occasion. So again, he's a work in progress. He's 21 years old in Delmarva, so he's about on age. So he's just going to have to keep progressing, keep going up the line and doing what he's doing, and we'll see what they have there after that. Last question Frobby asked was, we're always hearing about Heim is a much better defensive catcher than Cisco. Which aspect of the game are better? I noticed that he has 7 errors, 11 pass balls. Cisco has 4 and 4. Is it basically just throwing out runners where Heim is better? Or are there other aspects of his defense like framing or pitch calling that are superior? Heim is an interesting guy because, I've heard the same things. I've talked to some other folks. Everybody talks about his defense. Statistically, there's nothing that stands out about him. The guy doesn't, he's throwing out 32% of runners. He's pretty consistent around that. In his career, he's thrown out 33%, which is solid. But again, nothing like it's blowing you away throwing, Now, granted, when you're throwing out runners, there's a lot of things that come with that, especially if young pitchers have a hard time holding runners. So you can't always just judge off of those raw numbers. But again, you hear that the guy's got a really good arm, good setup. Calling the game is something I think he's still working on, as many young catchers are doing. So that's not surprising. That's not that's not really a super strength of his. But I think they just like the way he moves back there. I think a lot of his errors are on throwing errors and kind of being a little aggressive. The pass balls are always pretty high. So, at the end of the day is, the bat still needs to come. I know some people were getting excited about him earlier in the year. He's hit a couple of home runs, hitting 7 home runs after only having 2 coming into the season. That's good. It's good to see. He's 21. He's starting to hit some home runs. He's at an advanced stage in being at Frederick. But, again, he's a career 604 OPS guy. So we need to temper the excitement. I think a lot of times, I think he's probably a backup type of guy when it's all said and done. But he's definitely a guy that should is going to be progressing and moving along. So let's move on to Ken and Foz. He says, do you see the Orioles adding bullpen help if rotation pieces are too rich for Dan's blood? And I think it goes back to what we talked about with Fernando Abad, a lefty. I think the Orioles need to bring that lefty. They got to get somebody who can dominate left-handers tight in a nice tight leverage situation. And I think whether it's a bot or another guy, I think that's the kind of guy they need to go for to get into that bullpen. And going into this next question, assuming no trades are made, who do you think makes the biggest impact once roster expands in September? I think the bullpen guys are going to come up. I think you're going to see guys like Hart and Tolliver and Drake. Those are all guys that are going to come up. I think you'll see Wilson come up. Wright will come up. I think you'll see those kind of guys used as relievers that can help the team in different roles. And I think that is where they'll have the most impact. We could see Trey Mancini get an opportunity. He might be a guy that you want to have sitting on that bench if you get a left-hander late in the game. You can pinch hit for somebody and come in and maybe have some power and be a good pinch hitter off the bench with a right-handed bat. So last question, we'll go with Aristotelian. Hopefully that's how you pronounce that. I am sure the organization will not give information about specific trade targets. Do you have a sense the organization will go for it? Would we give up someone on a major league roster such as Bundy or Kim to get the right player? Well, I think no doubt we're going to go for it. I mean, this team is set up. Dan has gone for it for every season, even when he shouldn't, like last season when he traded away, Davies for Parra, when the team was 500 and not going anywhere. So Dan likes to go for it. So he's going to go for it. It would not be surprising, but I don't know whether he's going to. I can't see him moving Bundy. I think the only way you move Bundy is if all of a sudden Chris Sale becomes available, and he becomes available where a Bundy and a couple of other minor leaguers will get him. I think if you do that, you have to consider it because Sale can be a difference maker on this team for several years, and those guys just don't grow on trees that are available. So other than that, Scope's not going anywhere. Obviously, Machado's not going anywhere. I mean, it's just I don't see them moving Kim. Kim doing exactly what they wanted him to do all along, which is get on base. So, I think that's what we have there. Is I think if anything, it's going to be that kind of relief guys, the guy they'll go after, maybe trade those second level type of prospects for. But I just hope that the Orioles. Dan doesn't give up somebody like Bundy for somebody that's not going to have some extended time here with the Orioles, and I don't think he will. I think they've seen enough from Bundy and realized that they got to have a guy that they can kind of say, hey, this is a guy we're going to have in a rotation for several years, hopefully with Tillman and along with Gossman. So that's going to be it for me tonight. I hope this was enjoyable. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much. Still 0-0 in the third inning with the Rockies. I'm going to post this. We'll see how it goes, and maybe we'll do this on some type of basis. So thanks again for everybody coming to the site. Thanks for being Hangouters, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon. See ya.